But here's what makes this moment truly incredible. Jeff isn't some fortunate amateur who lucked into treasure by chance. He's a certified geologist with more than 40 years of professional experience who spent 7 grueling years digging this tunnel entirely by hand, all to prove a geological theory that almost everyone else dismissed as crazy. What we're doing is, believe it or not, we're digging for gold. Now, you got this really nice red clay material here. It's got a lot of iron oxide in it, magnetite, hematite, all the minerals that you need, or would like to see, when you're looking for gold. Every failure, every small breakthrough, every hard-earned lesson from 4 decades of reading the earth like an open book led him to this precise spot, in this exact mine, on this exact day. And what happens next is the kind of discovery that arrives only once in a serious prospector's lifetime. This is how it unfolded. The geologist who caught gold fever. Here's the key point: this wasn't random luck. Jeff knew exactly where to dig, exactly what type of deposit he was standing above, and exactly why the gold had to be there. He had spent decades mastering how to interpret the earth the same way most people read a textbook, and every chapter of that education, from earning his formal geology certification to spending 7 brutal years hand-digging a tunnel, brought him to this moment underground. Gold fever, baby. That's what Jeff shouts the instant the specimen comes free. I can see some gold, too. Oh, there's a big one. And there's a big one. Can you see that? Huh. Ooh, now that's what I'm talking about. Does that get the gold fever going for you? Huh. Slim, his wife and longtime prospecting partner, can hardly contain herself. Oh my God, Jeff. Look at the size of that thing. But to grasp why this moment hits so differently from just another gold find on YouTube, you need to understand what drove Jeff Williams into this mine in the first place, because this story really begins 30 years earlier, 3,000 miles away in Alaska. In 1995, Jeff Williams traveled to Alaska and tried panning for gold for the very first time. That was all it took. 3 or 4 tiny flakes sparkling in the bottom of a cheap pan, and something in his brain permanently switched on. I saw that gold in the pan and I was done, he later said. That was it. I was hooked. Lots of people get excited about gold panning during a vacation. Most buy a pan, try it a couple of times in a creek back home, find nothing, and move on. Jeff was different. Jeff already possessed something most recreational prospectors never have: a serious, formal understanding of geology. He's a certified geologist. He had studied how rocks form, how mineral deposits concentrate, and how geological forces acting over millions of years create very specific environments where gold accumulates. Hey guys, it's your favorite gold miner, prospector, and geologist, Jeff Williams. Now today I thought we'd do something different, and we'll be using a chainsaw to do it. So when gold fever struck, it didn't hit a casual hobbyist. It hit a trained scientist, and that changed everything about how he pursued it. Instead of randomly choosing creeks and hoping for the best, Jeff began applying real geological principles to prospecting. He would walk into an area, study the rock formations, look for iron-stained quartz, identify signs of hydrothermal activity, and map out where gravity and water flow would have naturally concentrated the heaviest material, meaning gold. He'd make a prediction, then test it with a pan. Here's a clear example of how Jeff's mind works in the field. He walks up to what appears to be a completely ordinary stretch of desert in Arizona. Most people would drive right past it, but Jeff sees something: a contact zone where 2 different rock types meet, with visible iron oxide staining running through fractured quartz. He drops to his knees, pulls out his rock hammer, and starts breaking open pieces. See this right here, he says to the camera. This reddish iron oxide, that's telling you that sulfides have been weathering out. And where sulfides weather out, gold gets freed up. This is a pay zone. He pans a sample right on the spot. Gold, that isn't luck. That's a man who speaks the language of the earth and uses it to locate treasure, teaching the world to find gold. And here's what truly sets Jeff apart from nearly every other prospector on the planet: he doesn't keep the knowledge to himself. He teaches it. He built a hugely popular YouTube channel called Ask Jeff Williams, where he and Slim document their prospecting adventures and, most importantly, break down the actual science behind every find. Jeff doesn't hoard information. He shares it freely, video after video, showing everyday people how to read landscapes, identify mineralized zones, and understand exactly why gold settles where it does. Think about what he actually teaches. Gold is 19.3 times heavier than water, roughly 3 times heavier than iron. That means it always sinks to the lowest possible point it can reach. Rain, wind, earthquakes, freezing and thawing, all of these natural forces constantly rework the earth, freeing gold and moving it to new low points. Jeff teaches prospectors to look for those natural traps, inside bends of rivers, areas behind large boulders, cracks in bedrock where heavy gold drops and gets trapped, gravel bars where floodwaters deposit their heaviest material first. But Jeff goes far beyond classic creek panning. He's equally effective in the desert. He explains that desert placer gold behaves completely differently from river placer gold. Intermittent flash floods don't sort gravels the same way a steady river does. Look for any signs of float, which is the small pieces of quartz that are going to be broke off of a host vein somewhere. If you can find these tributaries, sample them. See if you can find them. Now, just because you don't find anything down at the bottom of a tributary doesn't mean anything. There's not up further. So I want you to take a look at that, too. Desert gold is erratic and unpredictable. It can appear in arroyos, on hillsides, even on top of mesas. You've got to throw the textbook rules out the window in the desert, Jeff tells his audience. Out here, the gold doesn't play by the same rules. He also co-authored a book titled Where to Find Gold, distilling decades of hands-on fieldwork into a clear guide for anyone willing to learn. Me and Slim wrote a book, Where to Find Gold by Jeff and Slim. Everything I'm covering today is inside of this book and more. And it's got really easy to understand graphics. That way when you guys look at it, you'll see the cartoons we've drawn, you'll understand a lot easier. So if you get a chance, get this book. But his real classroom has always been the channel, hundreds of episodes covering metal detecting, dredging, dry washing, sluicebox operations, and underground hard rock mining, all filmed on location across Arizona and Nevada. On his mining claims in the Lost Basin Range near Meadview, Arizona, a historically productive area sometimes called the King Tut Placers, Jeff created a living laboratory where every geological theory gets tested in real dirt. 7 years in the dark, and then there's the tunnel. 7 years. That's how long Jeff spent underground, hand digging through solid rock, chasing a geological hunch that most people would have abandoned after 6 months. The project began when Jeff identified a mineralized zone, a section of ground where his training told him gold should be concentrated, not on the surface, but deep, locked inside the rock or resting in ancient gravels untouched since the earth placed them there. The only way to reach it was to go in. So Jeff started digging. Months feel like progress at first. The rock cooperates. The tunnel advances foot by foot. Jeff documents everything on camera, the drilling, the mucking, the shoring of walls. We're getting closer, boys, he tells the audience. I can feel it. Then the ground changes. The rock turns harder. The tunnel hits unstable sections that threaten collapse if he pushes too aggressively. Jeff has to stop advancing and spend weeks reinforcing what he's already built. Slim passes him tools from behind, working in spaces so tight she can barely turn around. The dust is relentless. The air is thin. Progress drops from feet per week to inches. Year 2. Year 3. The comments on his channel start to split. Half the audience cheers him on. The other half wonders if he's lost his mind. Jeff, brother, when are you going to call it? One viewer writes. Jeff's answer is pure Jeff, when I step on gold, that's when I stop digging. But underground mining isn't only physically punishing. It's psychologically brutal. Every day Jeff drives out to the tunnel, he's placing a bet. He's betting his geological reading is correct. That the mineralized zone he identified is real. That the gold is exactly where he thinks it is. There is no guarantee. There never is in mining. The earth doesn't owe you anything just because you showed up and worked, and there are moments, Jeff has been honest about this, when doubt creeps in, days when he drives out, stares at the entrance, and wonders if the geology is lying to him. Days when the physical toll hits harder than usual. Now, in the 7.5 years that we've been mining this drift mine, we've pulled out not ounces, but pounds of gold. He's not a young man doing this work. Every swing of the hammer, every bucket of rock hauled out by hand, takes something out of him. Some days you question everything, he admits to the camera during year 4, face streaked with dust. You wonder if maybe you read it wrong, maybe the deposit pinched out, maybe you're 10 feet off and you'll never find it. But then you look at the rock, and the rock doesn't lie. The signs are there. So you keep going. Year 5, something shifts. Jeff breaks through into a section where the rock suddenly shows exactly what his training predicted: visible mineralization, the kind of signs that tell a geologist the gold is close, quartz veins with iron staining. Sulfide minerals oxidizing at the surface. This is it, he whispers to the camera. This is what I've been looking for. 5 years of digging, and there it is. He keeps going. Year 6. Year 7. The tunnel grows deeper. The samples get richer. Jeff starts crushing rock samples right there underground with a mortar and pestle, screening the material through a fine mesh classifier and panning it on the spot. Specks of gold in the pan, then flakes, then bigger flakes. The deposit is real. The hunch was correct, and somewhere in the middle of year 7, Jeff finds what he came for: high-grade material that validates every single day he spent underground. 7 years of sweat, dust, doubt, and aching muscles, and the earth finally gives up its secret. But the tunnel wasn't just about what Jeff pulled out of the ground. It was about what the tunnel taught him. 7 years of underground work gave Jeff an intimate, first-hand understanding of how gold deposits behave beneath the surface, how alluvial deposits form when gold is freed from its original hard rock source but doesn't travel far. How placer gold accumulates in underground gravels. How ancient waterways concentrate heavy minerals into pay zones that can sit untouched for thousands of years. He learned to read underground geology the same way he reads surface geology, by looking at the rock, trusting the science, and having the patience to let the earth tell its story. And that knowledge, every single lesson from those 7 years in the dark, is exactly what led him to his biggest discovery. The biggest gold discovery. Now we return to the mine, and now you understand what you're really watching. Jeff doesn't just walk into this underground mine on a whim. He studies it first. He examines the old workings, the tunnels the original miners carved out decades or even a century ago, and he recognizes signs of an alluvial gold deposit, a formation where gold has been freed from its original hard rock source but hasn't traveled far. It's sitting right there in the gravels and sediments on the mine floor, this round river rock. Oh, isn't that looking good? And you can see all the bedding planes in there for where all this has been laid down thousands upon thousands of years ago. Big rocks, big gold. Little rocks, little gold. Sometimes just inches below the surface. The old-timers were chasing the veins in the walls, Jeff explains, running his hand along the rock. They were after the lode, but they were walking right over the placer the whole time. The gold was under their feet, and they never even knew it. This is the insight that changes everything. Jeff realizes the floor of the mine, the ground the original miners walked on, hauled their carts over, ignored completely, is actually sitting on top of concentrated placer gold, alluvial deposits that have been accumulating silently for thousands of years, protected from erosion by the mine itself. So he brings in his mine lab Gold Monster 1000, underground, into the darkness where almost no one metal detects, because almost no one thinks to look down when they're already inside a gold mine. This is the move that changes everything. Jeff knows alluvial deposits accumulate right near their source. The gold hasn't traveled far, maybe just a few feet from the original vein, eroded and freed over thousands of years by natural weathering. That he knows it's heavy enough to have sunk to the lowest available point, which, in an underground mine, means the floor itself. The ceiling has gold-bearing veins. The walls have gold-bearing veins. And gravity has been pulling freed gold downward since before the miners ever showed up. The detector fires up, and immediately starts chattering. Signals everywhere. Jeff adjusts the sensitivity and begins sweeping methodically across the floor, isolating the strongest targets. He marks the hot spots with rocks, working his way through the tunnel like a surgeon mapping an operation before making the first cut. Then he finds a spot where the signal is so loud the machine practically overloads. A screaming, solid target that Jeff estimates is sitting just inches below the gravel surface that he marks. It drops to his knees, and starts digging with his hands into the loose gravels. The camera catches the moment, his headlamp bobbing in the darkness, dust billowing around him, his breathing getting faster. Come on, he mutters, pulling handfuls of dirt aside. There's something big down here. I can feel the weight of it. And then there it is. A golden quartz specimen, chunky, heavy, streaked with the unmistakable butter yellow of native gold locked into white quartz and iron oxide. Jeff lifts it into the beam of his headlamp and for a second he just stares, turning it over in his hands. His fingers are shaking, then that grin breaks across his face, the same grin you see in every one of his videos, except this time it's bigger. Are you kidding me right now? He yells, voice echoing off the tunnel walls. Slim, get over here. Look at this. Slim scrambles over, takes one look, and grabs his arm. Jeff, that's the biggest one. That's the biggest one we've ever found. She's right. This specimen, a monster piece of gold-bearing quartz and iron pulled from an alluvial deposit in the floor of an underground mine, is the single largest gold discovery Jeff has ever documented in his career. Look at the size of that thing. It's a monster. It's a monster. All right. Well, I'm going to keep on helping her dig this out and muck this out. And then we're going to run this stuff through a wash plant and see what comes out. If we find any more gold, put up a snapshot later on the end of this video. His known finds include a notable 10.2-gram nugget found metal detecting in Arizona and many other impressive specimens recovered over the years, but this one eclipses them all. Jeff sits back on the tunnel floor, holding the specimen against his chest, laughing. 40 years, he says to the camera. 40 years of studying rocks, and it all comes down to this. You know what I'm going to say, right? Gold fever, baby. He pans the surrounding gravels from the same spot. The pan comes back absolutely loaded, his biggest pan of gold ever found underground, thick with flakes and small nuggets that had been sitting untouched beneath the mine floor for centuries. Jeff stares at the pan under his headlamp, turning it slowly, watching the gold settle to the bottom in a thick crescent that glints even in the dim underground light. Look at that, he says, voice dropping almost to a whisper. Now that's not just a nugget. That's an entire pay zone. There could be more down here. A lot more. Slim takes the pan and looks at it herself. She's been prospecting alongside Jeff for nearly 2 decades, through every success and every disappointment. She's hauled buckets, worked the sluice, sweated through Arizona summers, and frozen through Nevada winters. She knows what gold looks like, and she knows what a once-in-a-lifetime find looks like. Jeff, we've never had a pan like this, she says quietly. Not in all the years we've been doing this. And she's not wrong. Throughout his career, Jeff has pulled impressive gold from dozens of locations, including a notable 10.2-gram nugget found metal detecting in the Arizona desert, monster gold and quartz specimens from alluvial deposits, and countless loaded pans from surface operations. But this underground find, this combination of the specimen and the loaded pan from a single spot in the mine floor, represents the culmination of everything he's ever learned. This is not a man who got lucky. This is a certified geologist who combined formal training with decades of brutal fieldwork, including 7 years digging a tunnel by hand, to develop an understanding of underground gold deposits that very few people in the world possessed. He read the geology. He identified the deposit type. He brought the right tool into an environment where nobody else thought to use it, and the earth gave up its treasure. What comes next? Jeff still prospects. He and Slim are still out there hitting their claims in Arizona's Lost Basin Range, teaching geology to their growing community. I'm going to teach you the stratigraphy of this down here so you understand the different layers and why they're there. And while we're at it, we're going to do some metal detecting for gold nuggets. Hosting gold nugget shootout events in Meadview, where regular people can come detect on some of the most productive ground in the American Southwest, guided prospecting expeditions on historically rich claims, led by a man who spent a lifetime learning to read the earth. Here's what I want people to understand, Jeff says in one of his recent videos. Gold is where you find it, but you find it a lot faster when you understand the geology. Learn the rocks. Learn the minerals. Learn how the earth moves things around. Do that and you're not guessing anymore. You're prospecting. The underground discovery didn't make Jeff retire. It only made him hungrier, because here's what every serious prospector knows: if the geology put gold in one spot underground, it put gold in other spots too. The next mine, the next tunnel, the next floor nobody thought to scan. Jeff is already planning his next move. Already reading the maps. Already eyeing his next underground target. His channel, Ask Jeff Williams, keeps growing, and somewhere in Arizona or Nevada, Jeff is probably crouched in the dirt right now, headlamp on, rock hammer in hand, studying a quartz vein that everyone else walked past, because if 4 decades of prospecting have taught him one thing, it's this: there's always another piece of gold underground. You just have to know where to look. And you can never stop digging. So come on, let's go. If this story got your blood pumping, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Drop a comment below. What would you do if you pulled a monster gold specimen out of an underground mine? And if you want to see more incredible discovery stories like this one, you know what to do. Music fades.